at this afternoon's top stories. Attorney General says the government remains committed to introducing a dedicated land registry. Man in wheelchair remanded for murder in Guyana, and Trump experiences setback as U.S. court refuses to restore travel ban. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Friday, the 10th of February 2017. I am Shaira Flanders. Nationally, Attorney General the Honorable Vincent Byron Jr. said that the government remains very committed in ensuring that a dedicated land registry becomes operational in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis this year. He made the comment while speaking at the third in a series of town hall meetings dubbed Good Governance and Accountability for Prosperity on Tuesday, February 7th at the Newtown Community Center. He said that it is of paramount importance to separate the land registry from the High Court registry for ease of access. He said, "We have had this large backlog of cases and we have had a lot of work in terms of the registry, and this has slowed down the process, and in particular in one area, and that is the time taken to produce titles for land, certificate of titles and deeds. People need to be able to have a certain amount of certainty that when you purchase land and you want to get your title, whether to go to the bank to raise funds to build your home or whatever it is, that there is, as it was, the title is produced in a timely fashion." End of quote. The land registry will be housed in the Georgian House, formerly known as the Clico Building. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, or DPP, is also housed in the same building. Minister Byron said that the establishment of the land registry falls within the purview of the government's good governance agenda. The Attorney General said that over the next few weeks, a new High Court chamber will be opened at the Sir Lee L. Moore Judicial Complex in Bastia, and added that plans are also on the way to introduce a third magistrate court in Bastia that will also help to reduce the backlog of cases that exist. Matters of international trade and related matters of public health were the topic of discussion at a cabinet meeting held earlier this week. The meeting, which was chaired by Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, was attended by representatives from the Ministry of International Trade, Departments of Customs and Excise, Ministry of Legal Affairs, and the Ministry of Health. In a post-cabinet briefing, Director General of the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, or SKNIS, Lesroy Williams, outlined what was discussed. He said in speaking about the HELP program, Cabinet agreed to lend further financial support.
Cabinet was provided with an overview of the HELP program, under which to date over 150 plus persons have benefited with housing repairs. Cabinet noted that this will add quality and value of the housing stock in St. Kitts and Nevis. In that regard, Cabinet committed in principle to give support to making available of additional funds under a HELP program. Cabinet addressed issues of modification of the HELP program to ensure that priority is given to those persons who had the greatest need, in particular the indigent.
There was also a discussion about a new public market in Bastia.
Cabinet considered a proposal from the Ministry of Agriculture for the development of a new Bastia public market. Cabinet approved the proposal in principle and established a broad-based committee that will address all issues relevant to the construction of the new Bastia public market, including how such a facility will fit into its program for the rejuvenation of the capital.
There were several approvals made, including applications for new projects under the Citizenship by Investment, or CBI program, requests for duty-free concessions by a number of enterprises, and in particular, granted concessions to a number of small and medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs. Cabinet also examined the program for the week of activities to mark the second anniversary of the Government of National Unity and made certain refinements. Akil Glasgow of Sandy Point has been found guilty of all charges against him in court on Tuesday, February 6th. Glasgow faced the charges of illegal importation, possession of controlled drugs, and possession of with intent to supply. He was also charged with possession of a firearm and ammunition and importation of a firearm and ammunition. Glasgow was fined EC $200,000 to be paid in 4 months or, if in default, serve 2 years in prison. The charges stemmed from an intelligence-led operation in August of 2015. Commissioner of Police Mr. Ian M. Quealy said this conviction is a testament to the results of good work done by the police and other law enforcement partners. I want to also commend the prosecutors for staying the course in a difficult trial. It sends a clear message that when caught, you will be held accountable and the laws of the Federation will be upheld. Moving on to news on the regional scene in Guyana. A wheelchair-bound man accused of murdering a Durban Street waitress and wounding former magistrate Fazil Aziz was remanded to prison on Wednesday. Javon Vickery has more on that story.
The Better Hope man arrived in the cabin of the police van in a wheelchair, while relatives of the slain woman hurled remarks. In Court 3 of the Georgetown Magistrates Court, George was accused of murdering Deborah Blackman, who was a waitress at a Chinese restaurant in Durban Street, Wortmanville, on August 23, 2014. In addition, George was also charged with discharging a loaded firearm at former magistrate Mohammed Fazil Aziz with intent to commit murder. Attorney Melville Duke, who represented George exclusively on the murder charge, explained that his client suffers from a spinal injury after being shot in neighboring Suriname. The attorney argued that there was no eyewitnesses to the crime for which George was charged, adding that the 3-year-old video evidence was of poor quality. Bail was refused and George is to make his next court appearance on February 16. The robbery matter will be heard at the Sparendam Magistrates Court. Javon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
The St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce has suggested that the 2017 International Monetary Fund or IMF conclusions on the economy may not be telling the entire story. We hear more in this HTS St. Lucia report.
It was a civil DSH meeting in the Viewfort community on Wednesday, February 8th. Members of the business community gathered to hear from officials of Invest St. Lucia on the $2.6 billion deal. The deal is the first major investment signed by the Alan Chasney administration since taking up office in June 2016 and has been controversial from the time it was unveiled. With so much back and forth on the deal and many lingering questions, the government of St. Lucia has embarked on a series of public consultations to address the issue. The goal of the meetings is clear, but for Leroy James, the latest gathering did nothing to answer his many burning questions on the DSH deal.
Because I hear a lot of things outside there, a lot of news out there, and whatever I'm hearing is very confusing. So today I thought we would have heard something that would put the record straight, but it's not coming from the table.
Cynthia Joseph says the presenters sought to lay down the timeline for various components of the project. She says the meeting will be useful in helping people to come to their own conclusions about the investment.
Now I have actually understood what aspects of the project will be undertaken in the first phase, in the second phase, in the third phase, and I appreciate. So as the consultations go along, I will be happy and I will be able to decide for myself where this project stands as it relates to Viewfort.
Chamber officials say with the myriad of issues surrounding the DSH deal, it was important for members of the business community to air their concerns and have their questions answered.
I'm trying to better understand what are the concerns, what are the opportunities, what are the threats, and how these are going to be dealt with. We hope that this is just one in a series of encounters and dialogues on the subject so that everyone could better understand what is happening and they could see what role and what benefits they may derive and what are the concerns with this program.
Community meetings will continue with various target groups. The public information campaign has included sit-downs with heads of town councils and planned meetings with youth-based organizations.
Moving on to news on the international scene, a U.S. federal appeals court has refused to restore President Donald Trump's ban on travelers from 7 Muslim-majority countries. 3 judges ruled unanimously that the White House failed to show any evidence of national security concerns to justify the restrictions for a temporary ban on refugees from across the world. Trump has vowed to challenge the decision. Al Jazeera's Rob Reynolds reports from San Francisco.
Denied. In a major setback for Donald Trump's travel ban, a federal appeals court in San Francisco refused to lift a stay on his executive action forbidding entry to the U.S. for citizens of 7 predominantly Muslim countries. Trump claimed that barring the travelers would prevent violent attacks. The 3-judge panel ruled that the Trump administration had failed to make a convincing case for the order. But the case is far from over.
The United States government has several choices. One is they could go to the Supreme Court in Washington and make kind of a Hail Mary pass to see if they can get a stay either from Justice Kennedy or more likely from 5 justices of the U.S. Supreme Court. The other thing they can do is they can try to get a majority of the active judges in the Ninth Circuit here to agree to overturn or to review this ruling.
Trump immediately tweeted, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake," strongly implying he would go to the Supreme Court. Trump also spoke off camera to reporters.
It's a political decision, and we're going to see them in court, and I look forward to doing it.
So you believe the judges made a political decision?
We have a situation where the security of our country is at stake, and it's a very, very serious situation. So we look forward, as I just said, to seeing them in court.
The legal fight against the travel ban was waged by the Attorneys General of Washington State and Minnesota.
The law is not an abstraction. The constitutional provisions at stake are fundamental to who we are as a people. When an executive order is adopted like this, with little thought, little planning, little oversight, that creates chaos throughout our country.
For now, visa-holding travelers from the affected countries and refugees may continue to enter the U.S. without hindrance. Thousands of protesters rallied against the travel ban at airports around the country. Legal experts say the courts are asserting their traditional role of imposing limits on unchecked presidential power.
We elected a president. We did not elect a king. There are 3 branches of government, and they all have their places in the government.
Trump has harshly criticized and even questioned the legitimacy of judges involved in the case. His lawyers argued that the president has wide authority in matters of national security and that the courts have no business intervening. In a seeming rebuke to Trump's line of thinking, the appeals court reminded the president that his claim, quote, runs contrary to the fundamental structure of our constitutional democracy. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, San Francisco.
Following an internal investigation, French police concluded that the alleged police rape of a young black man was an accident. The man named Theo suffered severe injuries, and the attack on him in a Paris suburb led to protests calling for justice. The police report said there was insufficient evidence to prove an intentional sexual assault. Al Jazeera's Natasha Butler reports from Paris.
Nearly everyone seems to know Theo at the housing project where he lives in the Paris suburb of Aulnay-sous-Bois. His old football club isn't far from where the 22-year-old says he was raped with a baton by police officers. Reports that investigators may declare the incident an accident have been met with disbelief.
It's someone we know, so it's painful to think of what happened to him. The police are denying it, but they have to take responsibility. It's not right.
People here say they respect the police, but rarely feel that the police respect them.
They're supposed to protect us. They don't. They harass us. We don't feel safe here. They claim this is an accident. They take us for idiots. It's a total lack of respect.
As well as being an enthusiastic football player, Theo works with young children. His family say that he wasn't known to the police, and they've joined community leaders in calling for calm.
We are in the middle of the investigation into Theo's case, and this needs to be respected. Justice must be able to work transparently.
Not far from the football stadium, the housing project is quiet. Police are on patrol. If the incident is designated an accident, it could fuel the sort of violence seen on previous nights. 4 police officers have been put under formal investigation, 1 for rape. In a place where so many already feel marginalised, the hope is that justice won't let them down. Natasha Butler, Al Jazeera, Aulnay-sous-Bois.
And now for the weather. Present weather is cloudy with showers. Winds are moderate from the northeast at 17 miles per hour. Seas are moderate to rough with highs up to 7 feet. The weather forecast for today and tonight predicts partly cloudy to cloudy skies with brief passing showers. Sunset today will be at 6:11 p.m. and sunrise tomorrow will be at 6:39 a.m. That brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Shaira Flanders. Have a good one.